Welcome to a new episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics. First time I think all four of us been together for a while. I think
Since last month?
No, I wasn't on the last one, which is good. So I have watched it. I won't critique it too much, but I think we're almost following on a little bit because the last podcast you guys did was about what was coming in the next release.
Release 26, wave 25, wave 1. Yeah.
The spring release. So we're looking at that to land around about April, and then everything starts rolling out. And for all the positives we talk about with SaaS, with all the new stuff that gets added and all the changes that keep coming and you're paying for this subscription, that also brings some challenges, and also the flip side of Microsoft start removing stuff, or deprecating as they call it, the nicer way of saying they're taking stuff out. There's a challenge for the end user on how they manage that and how you work with your partner to make sure you get what you get when you're expecting it, and it's done in a sensible and controlled way.
And it's not disruptive. And
it's not disruptive to the business, that's always the scary thing for a customer when you talk about these upgrades are going to happen, and they go, well, when? And they think they're going to roll up on a Monday morning and everything's changed, and it's obviously we know it's not like that. But we've also put some processes in place to try and help that as a partner.
Yeah, so we can offer a service to manage the update process. So if you don't have the service from us, then it's on you to manage through the admin centre when your updates get applied.
What are the rough rules on that? When we talk about they get applied,
well,
there's a window of opportunity.
If you don't set any rules, it'll just happen.
Okay.
And it won't happen to your sandbox first. It will just happen to your production environment at some point.
If you haven't gone and set it up.
If you haven't gone.
So let's start there then. So what rules can you do?
You have no service in place to manage it, and your partner's not giving you any advice. It's just going to update, or it's going to try and run the update and fail, which is the other option. And it will try and run the update a certain number of times, and it will just keep failing until it will start.
You just end up with an email saying this is going to happen, whoever you've set up as your...
You don't even end up with an email unless you've set up who gets the communication, which is the first thing.
So you need to go into the admin centre and set up the notifications to say where those notifications go.
Okay. So there are tools in place, but if you don't know about them and you're not setting them up or you're not being guided, then this could be not a great experience for you.
And if it's not compatible, after so many failures, Microsoft just take it out and update it anyway.
Yeah, and initially we thought that would potentially only be an issue if you have modifications, like quite a lot of bespoke modifications to your system, but actually with deprecated features or features changes, even if you've got no modifications, you still need to consider it. So with things like the changes to sales prices, with things like deprecated fields that you potentially have data in and data that you use, then you do need to even if you've got no modification, no bespoke, or you've got a very simple system, you still need to think about it because it could still cause a certain level of disruption.
Okay, so let's start with what you can do on a normal SaaS upgrade or these monthly upgrades that come through. Let's start with what is available in terms of what we can offer, what we as a partner offer, and then we'll come on to how you manage things like, as you said, or things that are being deprecated, or what the impact can be, and again how people can be aware of it and hopefully minimise the disruption. So
we offer a service to manage the updates for you. So we will set the times and dates for the updates. We will look in advance of the update being released at any potential failures or any potential issues and try and manage those. As soon as the update is available, we'll create a sandbox. We will update a sandbox, create a new sandbox and update that sandbox so that we can test to see if the update process goes smoothly. We then give the opportunity to the customer to test it if they want to. Some choose to do extensive testing, some choose to do none. This is where things like the recorded test processes are really helpful because you can just run them.
We chase ISVs for updates where their stuff's got to be updated first. We run things called pipelines, which are nothing to do with the pipe but in effect take any specific code for you out of a repository and test it against the new version to see what might fail in your environment and then fix those failures.
Yeah, we fix it.
Is that classed as the automated testing? Because obviously you mentioned then automate.
It's the record. You can record your tests, can't you? That's what more I'm talking about. That just helps you then run those and make sure that everything works as it should. I think what we will do is, as James said, if there's an issue, we will resolve it. If there's an issue with the code, we'll resolve it. If we can't resolve it because it's a fundamental change to the process, so for example, they've changed the way sales pricing works, or they're deprecating a field that is used, we will talk to you and we will give you some advice as to how to smooth that out, whether it's using a different field or migrating the prices. We can use things like telemetry. So say, for example, they are deprecating a particular field or changing the way the sales pricing works. We can use telemetry to identify which ones of our customers are still using the old.
Okay.
So what we've done recently, we've identified which customers are still using the old pricing mechanisms, and we've written to those customers separately to say, you know, this is what you need to do. So we kind of manage those changes. We make sure that the updates happen at a convenient time. We make sure that the updates tested first. And also, if there are issues with the updates, which happens, and we've had significant issues with the updates in recent times, we will pause the updates, so they just won't happen. So if one customer goes, and we hear on we're part of kind of engaged groups and things like chats and Microsoft,
the bigger community of partners and Microsoft. Yeah.
If we hear of issues, we will pause them. If Microsoft pause them, we will update you. So it just smooths that process out.
The analogy kind of, you know, because we're in the software business, a kind of a SaaS business, and I think there's a lot of customers out there who kind of say, well, managed service, it's quite a kind of nebulous term of what exactly does it mean. And the analogy that I've used in the past is kind of, you know, do you service your own car, Liam? Or do you take it to the garage and kind of throw the keys across the counter and say, sort this out?
You've known me for 3 decades, you know exactly.
I'll be honest, I need washer fluid and I've needed it for 2 weeks and I don't even know how to open the bonnet.
So, you know, the analogy is, theoretically, you could service your own car. You could go and buy the parts, you could do the recalls, you could, you know, in reality, probably putting fuel in it is, you know, what most drivers these days.
Well, he's got an electric car, so I wouldn't do that.
Well, you know,
I've tried.
But
no, I get the
analogy of kind of, you know, as and with more and more kind of, you know, SaaS platforms are getting more and more sophisticated in terms of lots of interconnections to third-party systems and so on that have to be maintained, and kind of you just expect to jump in it and work. And you know, so the managed service equipment, it is probably the equivalent to a car service plan that just says, we will keep this thing, every time you jump in it, it will be ready to go and you will be able to drive to where you want to go to. And kind of that analogy is, yes, you could do it yourself. You know, every customer could go, but actually there's efficiency for us doing it. And we have over 100 clients on the managed service now, and that's just growing exponentially. It's doubled in the last year. So we can do it at scale, because if we go and read the documentation for one, you know, we can apply it to them all. It's very much more efficient for us to do it, use that knowledge multiple times, than it is for an end customer to use. The other thing I would say from my perspective is you know, we've had a number of transfers in, as we call them, clients transferring from other partners who perhaps, you know, Business Central isn't their specialisation. They don't understand. They can transact the license with Microsoft, but it's just a skew. They treat it like Office or whatever, everything else. This isn't like Office. Business Central is not like Office. If you can't write an invoice or post your financial transaction, it's a little bit more serious for your business.
Or receive orders from your website, which is the problem with the reason we've had to pause the last lot, because the Spotify integration.
Yes.
It's Shopify, not Spotify, Shopify. Nothing to do with music. But
the Shopify, so, you know, your business can't transact if ERP doesn't work. And so, you know, our responsibility is to make sure that that doesn't happen. And in the worst case that it does happen, sort it out.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an insurance policy. It avoids spikes in cost. So when the release is updated, if we were going to charge for the time to resolve any issues, then you'd get this, you know, these big bills periodically. So it smooths all of that out. And there's two other really important aspects to it as well, the more kind of proactive aspects, which are we monitor the storage levels. So everybody knows that you get a certain amount of storage with your SaaS environment that can, for one reason or another, you can start to approach that, and that can cause all kinds of issues. So we monitor that, and we'll talk to you and help mitigate that.
And if you don't, then additional storage is
expensive.
I mean, I think it's price gougingly expensive.
Yeah.
It's unjustifiable, but it is what it is. And I know.
But it enforces good practice, because actually there's a lot of people who have a lot of things in their system that they should be thinking about and they should be clearing down. No one needs 75 million changelog entries.
Yeah. About good housekeeping, isn't it?
And then the other part of it is the knowledge. In that, with every release, we send out very comprehensive documentation of what's new for you to be able to push down into your user base so they can take advantage, because you're paying for this cloud solution. You're getting all these wonderful new features that are coming all the time. But I get that a lot of customers will use the system exactly the same as they did 5 years ago. But actually use these new features, see what they can do for you, because some of them are really powerful.
I saw the email that went out last week as we started to get ready for the next update, and I saw some of I hadn't seen a later release of some of this educational stuff we're pushing. I was really impressed. So we are going to do something from a marketing point, so people watch that. There will be something where we share one of these that we've done, so you can see the type of information we're sending out, because you're right.
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
It's like having a Netflix subscription and watching the same film over and over again. It's just pointless, isn't it? You know,
yeah,
you
exactly.
want to take advantage of it.
When the new things drop, you want to be able to use them.
Who's only ever watched Friends
advantage
multiple times?
You think that's sexist?
I'm not. Are we still recording?
What makes you think that I don't watch Gangs of London?
That's on Sky.
Coming back onto topic. I go to think of something really violent and masculine.
But the reason why this is relevant for the 26 release, Wave 1 release, is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of complete tables and lots of fields that have been released. So things like, payment instructions name, cross-reference that move to reference numbers. They changed the structure of that a while ago.
Microsoft are having a massive clear up.
But that's good, isn't it? You were talking about housekeeping in data storage.
It's absolutely the right thing to do. Their justification will be around things like performance and just general, good housekeeping. So they're having a nice big clear out. But I know that yesterday we had, for our Cloud Control customers, we had 400 emails to say that certain feature that there would be an issue on upgrade. We haven't had a chance
across all the customers and all the
environments. We've run the pipelines against the future release, and effectively we've popped out over 100 customers.
And some of them will be nothing. There'll be a little tweak to push it through.
Yeah,
some of them may be more significant. We need to look and we need to find out where we've onboarded. I know that we've dealt with a lot of these things for our customers over the last few years. Where we've got onboarded customers, there's a chance they won't have been. So
the classic one was something like the product group, where that was obsoleted a long time ago. But people that are on older versions,
they might have extensions that still have that field, that's still dependent on that field. So we have to kind of.
So for the end users, that's one of the classic things where there's an extension we've written, some development, as we used to call it, that references a field that now Microsoft to remove it from the system. So just so everyone understands that.
And if you partner, a lot of the times the partner is responsible for this sort of stuff, or a contractor or somebody. Look, when you do development around Business Central, you fire up a product called VS Code. You install the AL extension, you connect to the system, you get a load of warnings. And I think that a lot of people have got very frustrated with all these warnings around future deprecations and so on. There's a whole, you can then set up a file which allows you to exclude those warnings from being shown, which makes your environment nice and clean, and you don't get it.
They've just turned off the engine warning.
I was going to say, having had the engine on
This is exactly right. Saying, that little message that comes up says you need a service in 1,000 miles. Yeah. It's like turning that off in your car. Okay, so in effect, you've now got to 0 miles, and suddenly you're going to hit the problem. And so this is where. And I'm aware people in our community get very frustrated. Why is there all these warnings? We don't need them, all the rest of it. But actually, the warnings are there so that you come to points like this, you don't get caught unawares. And, quality partners will deal with those in advance of you having to do that. I think be very careful that you're not getting
There's been enough
blown
warning,
away.
hasn't there?
There has, but the contrary side of that. So can we talk about the contrary side, which Liz, you mentioned sales pricing. Okay, so sales pricing has been the new feature in feature management. You go in and you can enable new sales pricing. That's been in there for 3 years now?
No, it's 4
long,
4 to 5 years.
4 to 5 years. But they keep pushing the deadline for when it will be enforced forward. And they've done it again.
Yeah.
So this is where, we give Microsoft some plaudits, but this is where I want to give them a bit of a kicking in terms of, look, you do all the work saying this is going to be enforced from 1st of April 2025, and then they go and move it to 1st of April 2027. The contrary view of that, though, that I've heard and actually found in a couple of instances myself, is that the way that pricing worked in the old way and the way that pricing works in the new way, you can't do everything in the new way that you could do in the old way. And so it's not an equivalent, if they introduce a new feature, it has to be equivalent at least, ideally better than the old way before they can deprecate the old one.
Dare we ask why they created the new pricing feature? We don't go, or do we just not go there?
So I don't think I'm breaking NDA. I hope I'm not breaking NDA. But I think that the thinking behind it was that there were a lot of ISVs that criticised the old pricing mechanism because it wasn't easily extensible. That's for true. It wasn't very efficient in terms of the way that it was kind of configured. And so there was a lot of moans about the old pricing mechanism.
But the coding could be changed still keep the structure and the functional usability the way you actually go and create pricing, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think there was a radical redesign, and there wasn't perhaps a think through of, hang on, we've got a lot of people who've used the old pricing for decades and will want the equivalent in the new, and we've got to accommodate them. So there wasn't perhaps the due consideration given to the migration at once. So, we had a product, we had a feature of a product that we haven't been able to upgrade it to the new pricing because the performance impact. So the way the old pricing worked is it put all the prices that could apply into a table, sorted them by price, and gave you the lowest one. And we wrote a product which was called an upsell fact box that effectively said, okay, you're buying, because you've got quantity breaks in that pricing, and so we said if you're buying 5, you can tell the operator that if you buy 10, you'll get another 2%. We tried to recreate that in the new pricing, and man, the amount of code that took, and performance-wise, it just wasn't viable to do. So we had to deprecate that feature, and actually we got some moans about that. Now in the old one, we just went to the next entry in the temporary table, and that was it. So it was a piece of cake to do. So that's where and I do feel for Microsoft, because when they're redesigning these features, and I've been looking at some of the kind of improvements they're introducing in Wave 1 in the last couple of weeks, and all the implications of, okay, they've done the work here, but they need to do the work here, and here as well. Yeah. And thinking all those through, you've got to be... it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there's probably going to be somebody who's upset with you. It's almost inevitable.
But sales price is not the first, and it's not going to be the last. So this is why the cloud control service helps smooth out those bumps and help make sure that you carry on business as usual.
Well, over a 4-year cycle, I would say, even if you need to change something for your customers, doing it over 4 or 5 years is probably possible. If the problem is if you get bounced into this, we've got to use new sale pricing from 3 weeks' time, and then you've got to say to your customers, well, the discount scheme you had doesn't work anymore or whatever.
But the majority of our customers we've moved over already, and they're using they're using it fine. And it's
the first one is anybody out there who's new to Business Central, go into feature management, turn everything on. Turn all the new stuff on, because if you're only putting Business Central in today, why would you use the old way of doing it?
Yeah.
Why isn't the new, for new implementations, why isn't feature management on for everything?
Yeah.
You know, that I think that's something Microsoft could
Renewed.
possibly agree with that, but we know to do it. Not everybody else out there does.
Sometimes we might be cautious about one or two of those, but
Yeah, but you're going to have to face the issue sooner or later. You're better off designing that in from the start, surely, than going in.
waiting till it's proven and
Yeah, maybe, but
depends how new it is.
You've got to go through the testing. You've got to go through the testing.
Well, we've experienced that. When packaging came in, that gave us, somebody turned it on, you couldn't turn it off, and it gave us a real problem.
Yeah.
So be
But
careful.
that again, that's
turning
where
everything on.
that's where the cloud control service is great, because you could take advantage of all everyone else's.
At the risk of banging a drum, that's where you need a partner who knows what the hell they're doing,
Exactly,
rather than somebody
100%.
who's just transacting a license.
Yeah.
Did I see that they've changed the window for when the upgrades take
Yeah,
place?
you can delay it. You can delay
That
it.
used to be X amount of
But
days, and they've extended. I'm not saying we should, but they're becoming more
sometimes there
flexible.
might be a reason to do it, but actually, all you're doing is kicking the can down the road, aren't you? Our view on it is, you're paying for all the new good stuff, get it in and get over any challenges that happen without taking any unnecessary risk. So we've got the opportunity to push it back further if we need to. And again, as part of the service, if we were unable to get over a particular challenge, we have the ability to push it back further. But why would you? And then the other problem is, if you have an issue and you try and log a case in Microsoft, the first thing they will say is, are you on the latest version? And if you're not,
we haven't had the need to push something back that degree, have we, so far?
not too far. We've pushed still got some customers who aren't yet on 25. But that was because of issues we've had, and if it affects those customers, we're not updating. We've pushed them back, but they will go over the next week or so.
So 5 months is plenty.
But yeah, absolutely. And as I say, it's not good practice to let yourself get too far behind. I don't think.
Well, if you're, it's like anything. If you're running up against a deadline, then it starts to crunch.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think and to be clear, you can push back base application. The platform still gets rolled up, so some of it still gets migrated forward faster. The base application you can do. Theoretically, it could save you some testing time because you're not testing so often, but you've got to test more because you've got to
jump more
bit more jumps.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is good in terms of it gives us more flexibility when Microsoft release big changes, and sometimes that's not on the 0.0 or 0.1 release, it's on 0.3 or something by the time everything's finished.
Yeah, so there's some of our customers going directly from 24 point something to 25.3 for one reason or another. But that's
we've got
because
more
they
ISVs.
would have had issues, and we've stopped them having those issues by delaying it.
Where you've got several ISVs involved now, sometimes getting all of those lined up and all of that through testing. I think the thing that I'm looking forward to, that I hope in 2025 we can get more, is the page scripting tests built into pipelines. So that pulling those back so that they become part of the automated tests that we can do up front. I know page scripts can take a little bit of time to work out what you want to test and then go through and record them in a smooth fashion.
But it saves.
But once you've got that, once you've done it, it's repeatable, folks. So why would you go through that?
Can I just make a point on ISVs as well? Because obviously when you do an update, your third-party applications will get updated to the latest version as well. You need to be quite careful, because if you create a sandbox and you update everything, and you test it all and you're like, yeah, that's fine, but the partner, the ISV releases something between the date you test the sandbox and the live, then you'll still get the latest version. So again, we can monitor things like that, and we can try and mitigate any risk that comes with that.
The devil is in the point X, isn't it? It's like that.
Yeah.
My release is 26.4.3.2072.
There's a lot of variation per customer because of the amount of apps and ISVs.
Well, that's why when we the way that we price the service is dependent not on the number of users anymore, but on the complexity of the solution. How many integrations, how many ISVs, how many modifications.
But the flip side of that is just while you're talking about price, though, in terms of what falls out from that, it's all covered in the cloud control contracts. You're not then going to get an unexpected invoice saying, oh, we had to do X, Y, and Z for you, which meant we spent so many hours on it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we do have to, if there's big changes because a certain process has been impacted, then, but that will be discussed in advance. And so, there's no big surprises.
Yeah. So it could be like James was saying, it's almost buying into having your service plan built in.
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
And there's certain things that will be excluded from that service.
Yeah, as wear and get wear and tear on your car, don't you? Yeah, so the equivalence of type of thing.
It smooths out those.
I was talking to another partner actually about how they manage this, and they were on the time and material. So if something happens on their upgrade, it goes back to it's taken us X amount of hours. This is the hourly rate. This is what you can be charged. And as you said, you don't really get a choice of that.
The first time you hit it, it's going to take you longer to do it. So that customer then pays 2 days, and then the next customer hits it, and they know how to fix it then. So they only get half a day. It's not fair.
No.
So at least with our service, it's fair. Everybody.
And it's predictable. I think most customers like to know that this is what I'm getting.
The other issue is it delays. If you've got to work out how much time you're going to spend, because you've got to do a quote and get that authorised and get a purchase order
and wait for the resource to do it, whereas we have resources.
There's a whole bunch of delays. So in effect, with this, one of the reasons I like is that as soon as you get those 400 emails, 20 minutes later you're tackling the first one.
Yeah,
we're on it and scheduling and and a lot of them by the end of the day, I would imagine quite a number. It would be interesting to know what we're down to now because a lot of them will be a quick fix. Well, it's just sorted, and it kind of, there's a lot of things which are such a quick fix that actually raising a timesheet and all that stuff is just no.
They are a quick fix, but they need a developer to fix them. So it's not. So whilst you can administer the service yourself, you can set your update windows, you can create sandboxes, you can update your sandboxes. You can't. The development side, most customers can't fix themselves and need
unless you've got a competent developer who understands.
Okay.
Well, I've learned something today because I didn't know the telemetry side. We were actually, going back to certain customers, and it's good, isn't it? Because if they read through and they get absolutely horrified that all these things are changed, it might impact me. If we can actually go and say, actually, look, you haven't got to worry about that at all. It's not going to impact you. It's one thing less to worry about in the world. So that's good. So that's something I've learned about our service today. So that's good. Okay. Anything else for anybody else, or are we all done?
I think this is a rapidly evolving world. I think when we sit here at the beginning of 26, I'm sure that the way that the list of things that the managed service is coping with will be longer than it is now.
It's hoping we're not still talking about sales prices because
we will be. I think it's been delayed.
Yeah, exactly. Annoying.
But there's a I think there's more and more stuff coming down the line. If you look at the update list, there's some very significant changes on there. It's great to see Microsoft accelerating the pace of particularly the application changes that are coming down the line. Some of the ISV solutions now are just mind-blowing in terms of what we can deliver just by installing from AppSource a little bit of configuration, and it enables with the business. With AI, that's only going to go one way, and we're really starting to see the first AI solutions that actually save the client significant time and effort now. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years. I think I've probably said that every 2 years for the last
it's not going to change, is it?
2 decades, but the pace of change does seem to be accelerating, and the opportunity seems to be getting even bigger.
Well, I think we're hoping to have someone from Microsoft's product team join us on one of the next episodes. It's all moving ahead, so that would be nice if it comes off where they can explain their point of view and what they're doing around this. So I'm hoping before we get to the April release, we might have that.
I can ask about sales prices.
I was going to say, That'll be the sales pitch.
Be nice, people. This is the opportunity
I'm
to pin them against the wall.
Don't get this episode released before it's all tied up in the diaries, okay? But yeah, we're hoping that'll happen. So that'd be good as well to get the other side of the arguments and why certain decisions are made. It's a difficult balancing act.
Yeah, I have a lot of sympathy for Microsoft. I'm not, I hope I don't come across as a complete fanboy and kind of they get a lot of stuff wrong in my view, or they could make better decisions sometimes. But hey,
I think those
they do listen and they respond and kind of they're trying hard to get it right. So the motivation and what we don't tend to talk about is the successes that they have. So stuff that they do that they get perfect just happens and doesn't get noticed in quite the same way.
That's the same in everything in life, isn't it? You only hear about the bad stuff or the problems rather than all the stuff that
when we moved into product development many years ago, we learned a lot around, product development isn't actually that straightforward because everybody wants it to do something in their view.
Everybody thinks their way is the way.
And it's kind of like you sit there and you say, that'd be a good idea to do. And then you go, the hundreds of users you've got already using that product, how are they going to transition to that new way of doing it? Yeah. And then, Microsoft with hundreds of thousands, we're lucky we only have kind of certain industries and so on. They have people using these products in a way that they never possibly imagined that they would be used. So it's horrific. So I do feel for them. Yeah, it's not an easy gig, but look, we'll keep chasing them and pushing them, and I think try and when they come on, let's just be constructive around, and that's what we should be. We should push them to get the best possible performance out of them that's possible for the people who pay the bills, which are the customers who use this stuff.
Well, it keeps them paying, doesn't it? And that benefits Microsoft and everybody else. So if you're happy with it, you keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, well, guys, thanks for contributing and explaining everything that's going on with this. So it's always interesting. So I don't know what we're going to go with when all this slows down and stops, but
it never will.
It never will. But there we go. So anyway, thank you for joining us on this episode of Tecman Talks Dynamics, and we'll see you again in a few weeks.